now start. Oh, good. We are now starting Legislative Day number 21. This is the work session. We have some reappointments, appointments and reappointments. I think our first is an appointment to the Baltimore County Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board, Mark Travers. Is Mark with us today? No? No, okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah, that one is an administration appointment, Mr. Chairman. I don't know the status of Mr. Travers.
Okay, and then we have another reappointment to the Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board, Brenda Stromer. Is Brenda here? Brenda's here. Ms. Stromer, come on up. Brenda Stromer. So you're a reappointment. Yeah, if you just wanted to come up and say a few words about, there's a little button on the mic there, it'll turn green. There you go.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
And you can sit down and relax.
Okay.
You don't. So, welcome, and we thought you might just want to say a few words about serving on the board, and
It's been a privilege.
obviously you want to stay on. So
Yeah, it's been a privilege, and it's kind of full circle because my dad was on it way back when it first started. I'm a third-generation farmer in Woodstock. We raise beef, cattle, pork, and goat, and then we also do agritourism, and I have a farm-to-table food truck. So I really enjoy like the farm visits when we go out and see the farms for everybody that wants to be in land preservation, and I'm all about preserving agriculture. I think farmland should stay farmland, and I'm all for it, and I really enjoyed the board, and hope to do another cycle.
great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the members?
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Councilman Jones.
That's my neighbor.
And this is your.
that's my neighbor, and I am 150% in support of Brenda's nomination. I have known her for many years. She is a pillar of the community. She works extremely hard. She's also a soccer coach, lacrosse coach? What do you do?
Field hockey.
Ice hockey?
Liberty High School.
Field hockey.
Yeah.
She's a field hockey coach where she spends her time when she's not farming, mentoring kids and teaching them how to do good. Teaching them how to participate in field hockey and be good sports. She is a wonderful person, and I wholeheartedly endorse and support her reappointment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome.
Jones. All right. Well, Brenda, we appreciate you being here tonight. And
thank you.
And we look forward to your renomination or your reappointment.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes, you can. You're good. All right. We also have, there's 3 reappointments to the Community Reinvestment and Repair Commission, and those are really somewhat strange in that we just appointed every one of these. So we have to reappoint them. So we didn't call them in, so they're not here tonight. It's Katie Rouse, Salisa Jefferson, and Dr. Takoya Farrakhan. So we're not going to hear from them tonight. If any of the members wanted to hear from them, we could theoretically get them for in between, but I think we're good. And then we have another reappointment to the Planning Board, Derek Johnson. Is Mr. Johnson here? Mr. Johnson, how are you? Good seeing you. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm wonderful. Thank
Good.
you.
Do you want to tell us a little bit? You're on the planning board now, so this is a reappointment, and
Yes, sir. I've been on the planning board since November of 2020. I'm originally from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and I've been in Baltimore County for about 20 years. I work for the Maryland Department of Housing, going on my 19th year, looking forward to retirement soon. I really enjoy the planning board. I've learned a lot since I've been there. One of the most insightful things I think about being on a planning board is being able to hear community input from different parts of the county and what affects them and what's vital to them and what's important to them. I also enjoy listening to everybody's opinion to be able to give you all a recommendation that you all can make to help the county. And I look forward to just completing another cycle.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for Councilman Patoka?
Hi, Mr. Johnson. What part of the county do you live in? Just curious.
I originally, when I got on the board, I was in Essex, but now I'm in Kearney, Parkville.
Okay, sure. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Marks. All right, well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you being here. We look forward to your reappointment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Okay. Next up, we're going to move to fiscal matters. And first, we have Major Jeffrey Hartman from Police Department on a contract for Urban Development Solutions Prisoner Transportation Services. How are you, Major? Good.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Good to see everyone. The scope of services to be provided include transporting and guarding both male and female prisoners from specific precincts to and from bail hearings at the Court Commissioner's Office in Catonsville, Essex, and Towson. And the transport contractor will also transport writ prisoners from the district court to and from the district court from BCDC. The selected vendor, Urban Development Solutions Incorporated, was the lowest bidder, resulting from a competitive bid process. The armed guards will transport the prisoners in prisoner transport vans supplied by the county. The total compensation paid to the contractor under this agreement shall not exceed the sum of the county council approved appropriation to provide these services during the entire term of this agreement, including all renewals thereof. The initial term will start when executed by the county council and continue through December 31st, 2026, at which time the county may exercise its option to renew. Baltimore County reserves the right to renew the agreement for 4 additional one-year renewal terms, and the county shall have the option to extend the agreement at the end of the initial term or any renewal term for an additional 120 days.
Councilman Patoka, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Major Hartman, good to see you in these chambers.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you as well.
You did many years out in the field as commander of Woodlawn Precinct. You did
Yes,
a
sir.
fine job there.
Thank you.
Good to see you here. I'm glad the chairman usually makes Major Wiedek wait, but I knew with you here, he'd have you come up right away.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, have a great night.
Thank you as well.
Okay. Next up, we have Ms. Deb Schindel, Chief of Property Management on on-call HVAC services.
Good evening, Councilman Chair and members of the County Council. The administration is requesting approval of 3 contracts with Temp Air Company, Denver Elec Inc., and Patapsco Mechanical LLC to provide on-call HVAC services. The contractors shall provide all labor, materials, tools, equipment, and supervision for the HVAC services for a time and material based on variety of county-owned and operated buildings within the boundaries of Baltimore County. This is a 1-year contract with 4 one-year renewals. The total compensation of this contract is $19,719,043.96. This contract was competitively bid, and it was chosen based on best qualified, best value, experience, and low bid This is a contract with an MBE on it, MBE, WBE of 20%. There is an auditor's question that I'd like to address, sir. The auditor's question says, the county awarded the 3 proposed contracts based on the low bid from 12 bids received. Property management advised that it will obtain proposals for each HVAC project and assign the work to the contractor with the lowest cost. Since property management intends to seek proposals for each work assigned, why does the county not award all qualified bidders, given that the low bid determines the on-call contract award and is based largely on hourly rates, which project proposals will be based on hourly rates and number of hours? So first, let me make some clarification on that. The quotes, we do get proposals unless it's an emergency, so I want to be very clear about that. All urgent and emergency works, obviously, we don't wait for getting proposals. But the county selects the amount of contractors based on the amount of work that we have had in the past. These contracts are based on hourly rates as stated in the question. The contractors whose rates are much higher would be asked consistently to provide the county with a proposal, but probably never would receive actual work based on their rate of schedule. This would lead to complaints from contractors and could potentially lead them not to bid on these contracts in the future. I'm happy to take any questions from the dais that you may have.
Any questions or from the members? All right. Thank you, Ms. Schindel.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you being here. All right. Next up, we have Deputy Director Lawrence Richardson from the HHS on 2 different bills, but I think he testified last week. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. For
he's
both 82 and 83, both supplemental appropriation bills, and there were no questions.
And Director Tan's the same thing?
Yes, sir. For Bill 84, Director Tan, and as well as
the fire
Bills 85 and 86 with Mr. Ebert with the fire department.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. So next up, we have Bill 8825. I think Mr. Samir Sid is here to, I know you presented last work session, but if you wanted to add anything, and we have some, potentially some auditor questions that we could cover. And then I know we have some speakers as well. Mr. Sid.
Yeah, sure. Good to see you again. And this is actually the last time I'm going to be here, I promise. Just to clarify that. So yes, Samir Sid, Deputy County Administrative Officer over Economic Development and Infrastructure, presenting again on Bill 8825, which establishes a property tax incentive for eligible port properties. So as we discussed the last time, this legislation will appropriately incentivize the opportunity for development of a privately operated container terminal in Baltimore County. And as we're, I think, all aware at this point, there is a proposed project for a privately operated container terminal in Baltimore County at the Sparrows Point Peninsula. And so I'll touch briefly on the benefits of that project, and then I'll hit a couple additional points. In terms of those projected benefits, we're talking about an over $1.1 billion capital investment in the county that creates over 8,000 new jobs, with at least 1,100 direct jobs supporting operations of the container terminal, nearly 6 million square feet of new vertical development potential on parcels that surround the container terminal, which will have a dramatic impact on county revenues, an opportunity to further diversify the county's economy at a time when 2 of our largest employers in the Social Security Administration and the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services are dramatically reducing the size of their workforce, and a more regionally resilient port commerce economy for the Baltimore area, which we saw the importance of in the aftermath of the collapse of the Key Bridge. From a needs perspective, I touched on this Every other container terminal right now in the country has public ownership and is wholly exempt from paying both real and personal property taxes. So it's our belief, and it's a belief with some confidence, that any privately operated container terminal would require significant tax relief in order to be competitive with its publicly operated peers. And I'll hit a couple other points just to clarify some things that I've heard recently. So in terms of the revenue impact on Baltimore County, I've heard some different fiscal projections floating out there, and I want to provide some clarity on that point. And I do, given the novelty of the project, I understand some of the confusion, and that's why I'm going to go through this step by step just to clarify. So when reviewing the overall impact of the project when receiving the tax credit, it's important to evaluate three things. One is the impact on revenues on the parcel where the container terminal is being built, which we'll call the development parcel, as compared to the likely alternative, which would be roll-on, roll-off cargo activity. Two would be the impact on surrounding parcels, and there's several parcels that I referenced earlier where you could see as much as 6 million square feet of new vertical development potential. And the third is the impact on the entire peninsula, which can be reasonably expected to see property value increases due to its proximity to a new container terminal. In terms of the credit impact on the development parcel as compared to roll-on, roll-off cargo, there's a modest decline in county revenues that's projected at $47 million in a gross perspective, which is a net present value of $3.4 million. But the positive from a revenue generation perspective of the county is most directly seen on the surrounding parcels, which have new development opportunities that I just talked about. Over 50 years, there's a projected $528 million gross revenue increase, or $90.9 million increase in net present value associated with the container terminal. The surrounding parcel development is what makes this project and credit so important for the county. I've been up here as recently as like October talking about Metro Center, and though it's a different type of development, there's a similar impact in terms of what we saw on that property with surrounding properties seeing new development potential, i.e. 4 new hotels and the development of Foundry Row within a mile of Metro Center. And the last thing I'll say is leading indicators show that rents in proximity to a container terminal on the peninsula would increase conservatively by 20%, which translates to an assessed value increase, and that would net out to a gross $336 million increase or a $65.9 million net present value increase. So when evaluating the overall benefit to our tax base, we're expecting to see an increase from this legislation. And the last thing I'll touch on is comparable projects, which is a challenge because this is the first of its kind. But with that said, there is a recent example of a public-private partnership to construct a new container terminal in Delaware at Edgemoor. And I use this example because it's new construction, which we haven't seen a lot of. And so this project is estimated to cost $635 million to develop, and the state of Delaware is contributing $195 million in capital funds, or 31% of the capital construction costs. If we applied that here, we're looking at $337 million in county funding to build a new project, not just to credit on future revenue increases like we're discussing with the bill. I'll point this out. It should be obvious. We're not putting up any money for capital here. It's all foregone revenue. And so, as a body that approves our capital budget, I think you guys know we don't have $337 million in the queue to invest in a private project. And so this is of benefit because we don't have to make that estimate, but we do see the job creation benefit, and we do see a positive benefit to our tax base as well. So with that, I'll stop and happy to take any new questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sid. Any questions, Councilman Marks?
Thank you very much. Mr. Sid, I've gotten some questions about what happens if this project does not materialize or happen in a different form.
Yeah.
And I guess the auditor's notes, the property tax credit begins in the tax year in which the eligible property was determined to be operational. So that's the start of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and there's an agreement that would have to, then it's referenced in the bill, but there's an agreement that would have to be cemented after the passage of the bill that would firm up operations, and it's very explicit in the legislation that there's no credit unless there's a operating container terminal.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Councilman Crandall.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, sorry to see you go, Sam.
Yep.
Enjoyed working with you over the years.
You as well. Yeah.
So I kind of made some laudatory remarks at the last work session, so I don't think I need to repeat those. And I think we have 6 members of the council that have signed on to co-sponsor. So I think there is a lot of support for this bill. And I'll just say this is just a massive opportunity for us. But unlike the referees in Sunday's Ravens game, we can actually get it right and not have to apologize later.
Yes.
So the auditor has proposed some amendments in going through the details of this mechanism. And I'm willing to offer those amendments over the next week and get them out into the public realm and have our council draft them.
Yeah.
The first set of amendments came in late November.
Yeah.
And as far as I understand, the administration is okay with that set of amendments?
Which set of amendments are you referring to?
So I'm looking at, it's a series of them. A lot of it is just sort of technical to make things more clear. Maybe instead of reading all 6 of these,
Yeah.
maybe we can talk about these offline.
We're happy to discuss any amendments. I know we'd talked, and Brad Croner and I met with the auditor. We modeled kind of the base year calculation. I think Councilman Marks was talking about after the CRD tax credit in that language. With that being said, we're happy to have a conversation on amendments before before the bill goes to vote. Yeah.
And all right, so those 6, let's have a discussion in the next couple of days on those. The other amendment, which is just one amendment, actually it would define the amount of time that the applicant would have to apply for the credit.
Yeah.
Right. So has the administration, to my knowledge, the administration hasn't really
Yeah, so that's
responded
the
to that yet?
base. That's the base year reference that I just made. So
Yeah.
again, the way we wrote the bill, we modeled it directly after the CRD tax credit because I think it's important to stay consistent. That being said, if you're interested in pursuing the amendment, we can sit down and talk it through and make sure that it works for us as well.
Okay, and I know that representatives from Trade Point and their council are here.
Yeah.
So I'll just read this one because they're here, and maybe I don't know if you all have seen it yet. This is on page 6, line 23. Before and insert this language. However, the credit may not begin later than the 5th year following the tax year in which construction of facilities for container operations at the eligible port property commenced.
Yeah,
And that's kind of new language. It's not amending current language.
Yeah, I've seen the language, and I think there's been some email dialogue on it. I'm absolutely open to having a conversation about it. Again, the thought process when we drafted the bill was to model it after the existing tax credit that we see most commonly.
Right.
But we're open to a discussion. Yeah.
And I understand the reasoning behind modeling it on something that already exists. However, this is quite a different type of incentive given the term and the amount of money that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the auditors really took a deep dive into the details on this to just make sure we have the I's dotted, T's crossed.
Yeah, let's talk as soon as tomorrow. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Crandall. Any other questions from the members? Okay. I know we have some speakers. Ms. Belcastro, did you want to?
Certainly, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sid.
Thank you.
Our first speaker is Scott Cohen, who is here in person.
How are you, Mr. Cohn? How are you? Good.
Good afternoon, evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council, fellow Mount St. Joe alumni, Mr. Young. I am Scott Cowan. I'm president of International Longshoremen's Association, Local 333 here in Baltimore. I represent about 1,950 longshoremen in my local, and I work for the International based out of North Bergen, New Jersey. So in total, I represent about 2,400 ILA members in the Port of Baltimore. The ILA has been working in the Port of Baltimore since 1914. My whole family was longshoremen. My dad, my uncles, we all worked on the docks. I've worked on the docks since 1994, shortly after I graduated high school. The Sparrows Point Container Terminal is a renaissance for the Port of Baltimore and a rebirth. All our containers and all our cargo was lost to a southern port back in the late 70s and the early 80s because we were 10 hours steam up the bay. People have said that this terminal is going to cannibalize the other work in the port. That's not the case. This terminal is being built by Trade Point Atlantic and Till, which is an arm of Mediterranean Shipping Company. They're going to bring their cargo out of Virginia, and they're going to bring their cargo out of Philadelphia, and they're going to bring it into the Port of Baltimore. And it's going to be a boom. But we cannot put them at a disadvantage with overburdened property taxes that other ports do not pay. And we are in constant competition for this cargo. Discretionary cargo moves up and down the East Coast. We represent ports from Maine to Texas, Canada, Puerto Rico, and even the Bahamas. My main concern is the Port of Baltimore. If this project does not go forward, we're going to lose thousands and thousands of jobs. Not just longshoremen's jobs, truckers, warehouse, building trades. While this is very, very important to Baltimore County, almost half of my members live in Baltimore County, this is bigger than just the county. A container terminal has the longest tentacles you've ever seen in your life. It's going to put so many jobs in motion. It's going to generate, it's a generator of economic revenue for everyone in the state, especially Baltimore County. So I'm here to support the bill, to give them the real property tax break they need. We need to break ground. We need to get this terminal built, and we need to create these jobs for this Baltimore County and the state of Maryland. Thank you very much, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Crandall?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming in, Mr. Cowan. And I won't insult your union the way I did the operating engineers 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you heard about that.
No, but that's okay.
The operating engineers had a bunch of their board members here, and I thought they were ILA, and I called them longshoremen, so they were insulted. Then I figured later that I probably insulted the longshoremen by calling them Local 37.
You didn't insult them. We pay better.
Well, thanks for coming in, and the prospect of good paying ILA jobs at this site is certainly exciting.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Crandall. Councilman Young?
Thank you for coming in and testifying today.
Sure.
And appreciate the work that you and your local does for the entire port and the whole region. Wanted to know, I know you were talking about the economic benefit, and also what's the feeling from the members? You coming here and supporting obviously kind of tells me that, but just from the idea of this project going through and starting up, what's the feeling from the members?
This is a positive for us, right? When the bridge collapsed, the Trade Point Atlantic Pier was the only pier that we could access. We've lost a lot of our roll-on, roll-off cargo down to the south in the Port of Brunswick, and all of it has not come back. So our man hours in the port are down. This thing is so big for us as just our union is concerned. Containers are the prize cargo of the shipping industry. Roll-on, roll-off has filled the gap for us. Paper has filled the gap for us. Break bulk has filled the gap for us. But the containers are where it's at. And the containers are what produces all the jobs. A piece of ro-ro comes in, it'll get put on a truck and it'll get sent to Canada or wherever it goes. A container goes to a warehouse, gets stripped, then it goes to different sections. It's layers of jobs connected with those containers, more so than roll-on, roll-off cargo. So it's exciting for us. And that's the big paying jobs for us is the containers.
Absolutely. And just on topic, but a little bit off, recovery from the bridge collapse and one in terms of hardship on your members and also how you all been able to pull together to, recover from that.
We came back pretty decent. Our man hours are down a couple 100,000, but the waterfront is a feast or famine type job, right? You have your peaks and valleys, and I learned that when I started. You hit it when it's there, and you make and work all you can because you're gonna get some lean times as well. But I can assure you this: when this container terminal comes, we'll go from 2,400 ILA members to 3,500 ILA members. I can assure you of that.
Absolutely. And also pertaining to the tragedy that happened with the bridge, if this had been built and been completed, probably would have taken a lot of the burden off of some of the folks that are working.
It would have took extreme amount of burden off. We'd have been able to get those ships in there and work them in there and turn them around. Our container volumes have been pretty steady compared, even pre-bridge collapse, but you need capacity for containers. That's what you need. And this is going to give us capacity along with the public terminal at Seagirt. It's a win-win for everyone. And these other ports, they're worried. They're worried, sick. They were talking about it as early as last week, especially in the Port of Virginia. I mean, listen, I have prejudice towards the Port of Baltimore. I represent a lot of ILA members from different ports, and I travel up and down the East Coast, and I see it all. We need to invest in our port, and that's what we've been lacking. And this is an investment in our port, and it's a big one.
Well, couldn't agree with you more that, one, investing in the port and also in the legacy that we've had for the ILA members and for the union that's been operating for so long.
For sure.
So, thank you for being here, and go Gales.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Any others? All right. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yo, Councilman Jones.
Yes, first of all, I appreciate Ms. Cohen coming in to testify. I just wanted to add something very, very, very small when he talked about tentacles. And I just feel like it is, when I was a PTA president for many years, and we would always have our fundraisers, and we had a gentleman that worked at the port, and where the trucks come in to whatever they do, get their loads, get documentation, whatever, he would take boxes of candy there and set it at the desk. And he, without a doubt, every year would just sell more candy than everyone else put together. I mean, one guy with selling candy at the port, right there where the trucks come in, and it was astronomical. But the point I'm making is, you talk about tentacles. That may be small, but it wasn't small to Heronwood Elementary School, because we got from selling that candy. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Certainly. Our next speaker is Mark Anthony Thomas, who is here in person.
Mr. Thomas, how are you? Good.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Anthony Thomas. I lead the Greater Baltimore Committee and represent more than 300 businesses and civic organizations across the Greater Baltimore MSA. When we released our 10-year plan, we unveiled it here in Baltimore County and at Trade Point Atlantic, and that was intentional. If we want to truly compete, we must strengthen the infrastructure that moves our economy forward and act when private ambition and public purpose align. Trade Point Atlantic is like the best model of those moments that have come together. For years, Sparrows Point has shown us what reinvention looks like, how a site once centered on steel can become a modern engine for logistics, manufacturing, and global commerce. The container terminal is the next chapter of that story. It reinforces the Port of Baltimore's rising position on the eastern seaboard, and it positions Baltimore County alongside regions across the country that are aggressively investing in their market to win. Bill 8825 is a tool that keeps us competitive. It doesn't draw from today's taxpayer base. It allows the private investment behind this terminal to generate tomorrow's taxes. It levels the playing field with ports that don't face these type of burdens, and at a time when other states are writing substantial investment dollars for the same type of infrastructure our partners are prepared to finance themselves. We need to take that into consideration. Opportunities like this are rare, especially in Maryland, which is facing its own economic imperative to reinvent its economy. And when asked not to build the foundation, but to simply allow the foundation to rise, the impact is unmistakable and is something that we need to support. From GBC's vantage point, this is exactly what our regional strategy calls for and the types of projects we want to support. Bold investments in the assets that define our competitive edge, alignment across nationally significant projects, and a recognition that our world is moving, and so we must move with it too. And so on behalf of the GBC, I strongly encourage support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the members? All right, thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate you being here.
All right, appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Ray Baker, who is here in person.
Mr. Baker, how are you? You may get the award for coming the furthest today. I said, you may get the award for coming the farthest today.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair, Council. My name is Ray Baker. I am the Maryland Director for the Baltimore, D.C. Building Trades. We represent over 28 different construction affiliates, including the operating engineers of Local 37, as well as over 30,000 construction workers in this jurisdiction. We want to appreciate and thank the council, the 6 of those folks on the council who are co-sponsors for this bill, because we support and urge this bill, and we are particularly excited about partnering with TradePoint Atlantic on their voluntary project labor agreement. Project labor agreements are so important right now because they ensure workers get paid, they ensure that the work is done on time and on budget. We appreciate this private company voluntarily entering into a project labor agreement that will ensure that we will have registered apprentices, many coming very out of this county, to help build and construct this facility. And we are excited about the opportunity to have a hallmark, landmark facility for so many of our apprentices to get their hands dirty, working in, because for so many construction workers, as you all know, it is nothing but a major point of pride to be able to go by an important facility such as the Sparrows Point Container Terminal, to be able to tell their young person, I built that. I know because my father, elevator constructor, helped build the Baltimore subway. And every time we got anywhere near the subway, or at least in shouting distance of the subway, and even now that he lives in Georgia, he will still remind me that he built the subway. And so I am appreciative of our folks at TradePoint partnering in this voluntary PLA, and I'm grateful that the council decides that it is a worthwhile investment of the county so that some parent somewhere can tell their young person, I helped build that. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Baker, I just want to thank you for coming in. I always appreciate working with you. I admire your commitment to bettering the work environment for your members. You came a long way, as the chairman said, and really appreciate it. I also want to thank your father, because I'm a frequent I ride the Metro a lot, and I always took great pride. I remember when I'm older, so I remember when it was built, and when we had all these. Your dad probably remembers this too. We had these planks on all of the downtown roads, and underneath was tunnel digging. Massive engineering project. And so thanks to you, thanks to your dad. I appreciate you coming in.
Much obliged. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, sir. Oh, Councilman Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Baker, good to see you.
Likewise.
I've enjoyed engaging with you, you and your members, especially when it came to the PLA agreement that I know you all having that TradePoint Atlantic is voluntarily entered into. Because we've engaged over the years about this, and not just with this example, but I think folks that are listening and also folks that might have a misunderstanding of the project may not understand the significance of that. Would you be able to kind of elaborate for folks that might be listening and other folks who may not understand just how important that is and also what a landmark opportunity that we have here?
Absolutely. Project labor agreements are important because, unfortunately, in the construction industry, we sometimes see misclassification. There are workers who are not getting paid what they deserve, and that results in wage theft. And wage theft adversely affects the workers first and primarily. It adversely affects our counties and our states because employment taxes on insurance, things of those natures are not being paid as they should. When we have a project labor agreement in place, we know there's a certainty of a skilled labor workforce. We know there's a reliability of the project being done, as I mentioned, on time, but most importantly on budget. And we know that each partner in that, the subcontractors, the general contractors, those who are the developers, everyone is clear, the responsibilities are outlined, and the work is done at a high level. And so without that certainty, I'm certain that there's other types of work that can be done and can be done well, and I respect those non-union spaces. But with that certainty, we can all walk away with that kind of confidence and assurance that such a vast project, such as the one we're talking about, Councilman Young, as you alluded to, we want that to have the kind of stability and certainty that a project labor agreement has historically ensured.
And I think it also plays or also shows too that with what we're talking about here is a 50-year agreement that potentially has an opportunity for another 50 years that will go long beyond us who are in this room. So I think the commitment to doing it right and presenting the opportunity for workers to then be provided and have certainty associated with the work that they do is important and also worthy of note for TradePoint and for the folks that have been working on this project. So thank you for the elaboration.
Councilman, I want to applaud the council for doing just as our you mentioned doing it right, and I appreciate that, and the PLA does that, and the council in this investment is doing just what our members do on a regular basis, which is you measure twice and cut once.
Yeah, good one.
As the head of the bill. Representing the building trades, I would expect nothing less. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Young. I don't know if anybody online doesn't. Okay. Councilman Marks?
No, and I just want to talk about project labor agreements. I mean, they've historically been a very important tool in ensuring that you do not have union work stoppages. The Hoover Dam was a project labor agreement. I think the Dulles Metro Rail extension might have been. So, I mean, this is something that's really refreshing to see in a private entity as well.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Belcastro.
Our next speaker is Sharon Keene, who is on virtually.
Okay. Ms. Keene, are you here?
Ms. Keene, there she is.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Great. Good afternoon, Chairman Ertel and members of the County Council. My name is Sharon Keene, and I'm the president of the Chesapeake Gateway Chamber of Commerce in Eastern Baltimore County. This part of the county suffered greatly when Bethlehem Steel and other major manufacturers left the area. The Chamber's mission back then was and continues to be creating an economic environment which supports the businesses that are here, that attracts new companies to the area. And we also utilize our resources to improve the quality of life for our residents. From day one, this is exactly what TradePoint Atlantic promised and has delivered. Economic development at TradePoint Atlantic, as others have said, has attracted over 50 world-class organizations to Eastern Baltimore County, which support the local economy and boost this community by creating thousands of jobs, including the union jobs. In turn, these businesses and their employees assist in growing the tax base in Baltimore County, which then generates better public services for our schools, our police, our fire, and parks, just to name a few examples, and an improved infrastructure, which attracts significant additional investment. The tremendous effort which has gone into the environmental cleanup and TradePoint Atlantic's 10-year history of paying it forward, supporting local nonprofits, and making a generous donation for the beautiful new Sparrows Point Park show their dedication to improving overall quality of life in the community. Their collaborative effort has made the area more resilient and more prosperous for everyone and ensures sustainable growth for many years to come. This container terminal presents a tremendously unique opportunity to further this development's success with ripple effects that are not just local, but statewide and beyond. However, in order to be competitive, and as you know, shipping is extremely competitive, we need, as others have said, to level the playing field. As surrounding ports expand their capabilities, so too will this container terminal significantly expand capabilities for the Port of Baltimore. Yet while other ports are utilizing bonds and public dollars on properties which pay no taxes, this project promises over $1 billion in private investment, real estate tax revenue on the terminal property, and increasing real and personal property taxes on the surrounding acres as they are enhanced, not to mention the over 8,000 new jobs which will be created. The Chesapeake Gateway Chamber of Commerce believes that the passing of Bill 8825 is a critical element to the project's success, and we fully support this tax credit for TradePoint Atlantic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keene. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker.
Our next speaker is Walter Pinkard, who is on virtually.
Mr. Pinkert. Mr. Pinkert?
Yeah, can you hear me?
You can hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, my camera wasn't working. I don't really know what's happening with that, but anyway, my name is Wally Pinkard, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing at the World Trade Center Institute. Working with the region's largest international business network gives me a front row view of the impact that international trade has on Maryland and the broader Mid-Atlantic community. The Port of Baltimore was founded more than 300 years ago, and international trade through our ports has always been a driver of our region's prosperity. Today, we remain the largest inland deep-water port on the East Coast, serving as a critical gateway to Midwest markets. Geography gives us a significant competitive advantage, but maintaining that advantage requires continued investment. The Sparrows Point Container Terminal represents a generational opportunity for Baltimore County and our entire region. TradePoint Atlantic's redevelopment of the former Bethlehem Steel property has already been transformational. What was once one of the most polluted industrial sites in Maryland has become a nearly 10 million square foot Class A industrial warehouse space, is supported by the largest privately owned rail yard on the East Coast. More than $1 billion in private capital has already been invested, and 10,000 people go to work there every day. This new project builds on that momentum and positions the site to reach its full potential. The bill under consideration seeks to level the competitive playing field for Sparrows Point Container Terminal, allowing it to compete nationally with other terminals that are not subject to the same taxation. Importantly, it does so without using existing taxpayer dollars. Other states and municipalities are investing hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars to build or expand their terminal facilities. Sparrows Point is distinct because the majority of the project funding will come from private investment. This investment is projected to support 8,100 jobs, 1,100 of which are union jobs directly related to the port, 7,000 are induced jobs tied to container operations, and hundreds of construction jobs will be during the build-out. It will also accelerate the development of the remaining 6 million square feet of industrial facilities at TradePoint Atlantic, attracting new business, new employment, and increased tax revenue for Baltimore County. In closing, I encourage you all to support the transformative investment in Baltimore County and in our region. This project strengthens our competitive positions, deepens our economic resilience, and ensures that Maryland's economy continues to prosper for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkert. We appreciate your testimony. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker.
Our next speaker is Alexander Pappas, who is here in person.
Mr. Pappas, how are you today?
Merry Christmas and happy. Thank you, Mr. Pappas. I really appreciate that.
Hey, Scott, the mic will not go out on you, unlike the cell service a couple weeks ago. We're all ears.
Yeah, press the button, you'll see the green light come on and you're live.
Green light, very good. Let me just read this, and if there's any questions or any comments, maybe we'll do it at that point. As you know, Trade Point TIL Terminal, Sparrows Point Container Terminal, has jointly undertaken a development of Sparrows Point Container Terminal. And as you know, Trade Point TIL Terminals, LLC, Sparrows Point Container Terminal, has introduced by request of the Baltimore County, through the Baltimore County Executive Office, Bill 8825, Property Tax Credit for Eligible Port Property, a bill granting both real and personal tax exemptions. I offer my thoughts in this matter. Since 2015, the year the Trade Point came to Sparrows Point, I've been representing the interests of the community of Fort Howard regarding development and industrial activities at Trade Point Atlantic affecting our air, water, and quality of life. Per my request, my district councilman, Mr. Crandall, included language in Bill 8615, which was in 2015, assuring recreational benefits of land or cash in lieu tied to the Trade Point retail development on Bethlehem Boulevard. In 2019, my good friend Barbara Brown from the MDE Voluntary Cleanup Program section head provided me environmental site assessment for parcels B7 and B25, which germinated the fruition of the Sparrows Point Recreational Center. The recently introduced Bill 8825 presents opportunities addressing the quality of life concerning concerns affecting all 9th District communities. Number 2, I got 5, so give me a little latitude here. The purpose of the bill is rigging the Sparrows Point Container Terminal real property tax for 50 years by anchoring the 168-acre parcel to a set tax of $196,000 year one, and each year after adjusting that amount for inflation 2 or 3%, in contrast to the standard tax rate of $1.1 per hundred with assessments every 3 years. The Baltimore County tax base of homeowners and businesses will absorb the tax revenue lost with this sweetheart deal. The Baltimore County fiscal notes state that the current assessment of the port is 168 acres, is $132,000. That comes out to roughly $71,000 per acre. However, 8.4 acres on a similar zone of MHIM zone in an unimproved lot, Oaktown Beechwood, only 5 minutes away in the 2122 zip code, is selling for 1.2 or $141,000 per acre, twice the acreage, twice the port acreage. So why is there such a great difference in the prices with only a 5-minute drive? Barring Trade Point Atlantic's special tax scheme per quantitative language. Let me repeat that again. Barring Trade Point Atlantic special tax scheme quantitative language, the entire body of the fiscal notes is qualitative, descriptive language. And I quote, while the bill's fiscal and economic impacts are challenging to predict, the infrastructure of the real property tax credit and the associated required payment potentially would yield an increase in general revenues. And the inception of the 50-year tax credit would partially offset the foregone tax revenue of the property values, and the administration anticipates that the container terminal and the size of this bill is expected to attract and create thousands of new jobs. Again, in parentheses, challenging to predict, potentially, partially, anticipates, and expected are speculative terms. In total contrast, the 50-year tax formula is numerical, exact, non-fungible, ironcladding Trade Point's guaranteed deal while leaving taxpayers merely to speculate any benefit, if at all, will accrue. The fiscal notes for Trade Point Atlantic, repeat, the fiscal notes show for Trade Point's lands arguing Trade Point Atlantic is a disadvantage, claiming other container ports are partially operated while wholly exempt from property real taxes, where in reality, Seagirt, Trade Point's most proximal competing container terminal, pays no real property taxes because the property taxes are in the lease from the state. Lessees renters do not pay taxes on leased rented property. The fiscal notes fail to mention the Federal Highway Administration's calculated revenue and benefits accruing to the state over the 50-year lease. It reads, $141 million upfront in concessions for payments to MDOT for bridges, highways, and tunnels. It says $100 million for berth improvements, $290 million in lease payments, $465 million in payments levied on containers moved in excess of 5 500,000 annually, noting that Seagirt moved 1.1 million containers, I believe, in 23 or 24. $265 million in maintenance, $210 million in additional capital investment with emphasis on port land is leased, while Seagirt generates thousands of jobs also. Additionally, Trade Point Container Terminal personal property is completely exempt, including the multiple $35 million ship-to-shore cranes, tractors, trailers, gantries, handlers, forklifts, stackers, and all the other container port property. On top of the 100% personal property tax exemption, the counting cherry on the top of this personal property is depreciable, lowering the income tax liability while swelling the bottom line of.
Mr. Pappas.
What?
You're over by 2.5 minutes now, more than 2.5 minutes.
You know what?
Can you summarize, please?
Let me just state this. This statement is on my website, forthoward.org. It's Fort Howard, FORTHOWARD.org. I apologize for taking up
no worries.
the time of this council. We will be visiting this in the future, okay? Because the fact of the matter is that this is not a fair deal for the taxpayers. We're getting nothing out of it in the 9th District. The 9th District, from the statistics that I read, has a 20%, okay, lower than poverty level income level. At 60,000 people, that means 13 or 15,000 people live below the federal poverty level in my district. Now, we got money, okay, for billionaires, and these are the biggest corporations on the planet that are investing in this, okay? So I think personally, okay, the provisions that I have in here about roads, about infrastructure, things of that nature that should be put in our district that I'm seeing everywhere else in this Baltimore County. We're going to take the brunt with these traffic that's already going on right now. I don't want to raise my voice because I'm getting upset. But the fact of the matter is I want to see provisions coming straight back to this 9th District. That's what I want to see, and I thank you for your time. And again,
thank you, Mr. Pappas.
Happy Hanukkah.
Okay, Ms. Bel Castro, next.
Certainly. Our next speaker is Chris Mudd, who is here in person.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Christopher Mudd, Venable LLP, excuse me, here on behalf of Trade Point Atlantic. I won't take up too much time. I just wanted to mention two things. One is I marked 20 years at my firm this year. And wow. in looking back, I've been working on this project for over 10, and it's been one of the most remarkable experiences of my career. At the last meeting, Councilman Crandall and Councilman Marks both commented about some of the momentous things that this council did for this project and that they felt very proud about that. And I feel very proud for the work that I've been able to do and felt privileged to be working on this project throughout. The second thing I wanted to mention, and I should say as well that I thank you all for signing onto this bill and being supportive of it as we made our way through this process. The second thing I just want to mention for Councilman Crandall on the record on behalf of Trade Point is that we're willing to continue to work with you and the administration on any amendments that might be necessary to clarify the bill. Regarding the amendment that you read on the record, that was something that we've anticipated would actually come in the agreement, but if it feels important to you and to the auditor that it should be in the bill, it's certainly something that we can work through. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mudd. Councilman Crandall.
Thanks, Chris. We'll just have a conversation about that, sure. That specific amendment. It may be worth codifying and I'm just thinking out loud here to change some of the language that we can codify that it has to be in the agreement.
Right. Yeah, one thing when I look at it,
we can skin the cat a few ways, I guess.
Sure. I look at the word commence, for example, and if it's undefined in the bill, what does it mean? So that's why we see language like that and think that in an agreement where you can actually flesh things out and define would be a reason why it may make more sense to be in the agreement. But we're willing to work through with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mudd. Ms. Bel Castro, next speaker.
Certainly. Our final speaker on this item this afternoon is Aaron Tamarchio, who is here in person.
Mr. Tamarchio, how are you?
Chair, I'll yield my time unless the council has any questions for me. I'm just here to answer any questions at the time.
Any questions for Mr. Tamarchio? No? Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate the time savings. All right, we will move on then. Next up, we have Mr. Reed. I'm going to go to you. Bill 8925, bond ordinance. I know you spoke briefly about this before, but did you have anything to add tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have anything to add. Again, this is just as a testimony last week. Our annual bond ordinance that comes around this time gives us the ability to issue debt throughout the next coming year and refund debt as needed to fund existing projects as we have moving forward.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Reed at this time? No. Okay. Next bill, we have Bill 9025. This is from Councilman Marks. Zoning regulations in the Honeygo area sidewalks.
Thank you very much. Bill 9025 establishes an exception to the requirements that all streets in the Honeygo area have sidewalks. As you've heard me talk about many times here, Honeygo is a special development district in northeastern Perry Hall, created in 1994. The requirement to put in sidewalks at this location is a bit odd and nonsensical, quite frankly. At the end of Rexus Avenue terminates into a hiker-biker path that then ends at Cowington Avenue. The hearing officer's decision allowing for the construction of 3 houses in this area references this public walkway, and yet the requirement to install sidewalks at this one area remains. So that this bill would basically remove that, make it an exception to the general condition within the Honeygo area. There still would have to be an amendment to the development plan for these 3 houses, but it would take away that requirement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. We don't have any speakers.
There are
We have one speaker for this item.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. I didn't see him on here.
Yeah, they
It's
didn't sign.
Brett Frankus.
Okay. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you? Thanks for having us tonight. Thank you, Council Chair and the members of the committee for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Brett Frankus, and along with my neighbors in attendance, we appreciate the county's willingness to review this issue. We are here to respectfully request your support for Bill 9025 that amends the requirement for curbs, gutters, and sidewalks for the 3 homes located at the end of Rexus Avenue. Our comments presented today are based on historical conditions, current road status, practical constraints, and fairness to homeowners. Prior to construction of the 3 homes, Rexus Avenue functioned as a through street connecting to Cowington Avenue. That condition no longer exists today, and the function of the roadway has fundamentally changed. Prior to construction of the 3 properties, Rexus Avenue was already closed and gated. Before the 3 homes were built, 2 homes existed on Rexus Avenue without sidewalks, curbs, or gutters. These conditions were present when Rexus Avenue experienced more traffic than it does today. Imposing sidewalk requirements now is inconsistent with both historical and present roadway conditions. The existing road width, approximately 13 feet, complements the adjoining bike and walk trail and supports pedestrian use without the need for additional infrastructure. The 3 homes are not part of a subdivision, are not governed by a homeowners association, and are not connected to the broader sidewalk network. Forgive my neighbors, but 2 of the 3 homeowners are senior citizens, and sidewalks introduce permanent maintenance responsibilities that were neither expected nor disclosed. Installation of sidewalks, curbs, and gutters would impact established landscaping and reduce limited maneuvering space at the dead end of the street. Rather than improving safety, the installation may increase conflict in a constrained area. Homes directly across from Rexus Avenue from the 3 newer homes do not have sidewalks. Selective enforcement creates inequity without public benefit. The existing bike and walk trail already provides safe pedestrian access in a non-trafficked environment for children and residents. Based on the unique characteristics of Rexus Avenue, historical precedent, official county actions, lack of community integration, and the tangible impacts to homeowners, we respectfully request approval of the amendment or waiver removing the requirement for curbs, gutters, and sidewalks for the 3 Rexus Avenue homes. There's also some supported documents and pictures of the property and homes.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Marks.
Thank you. You did a great job. And like I said, I would not be supporting this, but this is kind of a unique area already serviced by a hiker-biker trail. So I think you've captured that very well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is that all for that bill? Okay. All right, so we will move on to Bill 9125. This is from Councilman Ketch. Zoning regulations, uses permitted in the ML Zone Electric Vehicle Center.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for introducing the bill. What the bill does, it relates to property in the county that is zoned ML, manufacturing light. It would, property that's zoned ML, a electric vehicle center would be allowed to locate there. These are centers where basically people go online and they will, in essence, construct their own commercial or personal vehicle. Well, you've seen that with vehicles in the past where you can add this, subtract that, etc. And the dealership would have a area where the cars are serviced, where they're displayed, etc. It wouldn't be a typical new car dealership, which is why it's defined slightly different. And the one thing that is in the bill is it does not allow for the sale of used vehicles or a used vehicle lot or a sign or anything of the sort. Now, this bill relates to any property in the county that's zoned ML. If someone is not comfortable with this legislation applying in their district, I would certainly be more than amenable to limiting this bill to the area in my district that we're trying to address. Or if you want to be included and exclude the rest of the county, I'd be more than happy to have you introduce an amendment which would include a particular area. So I'm open to any situation where you either want it in your district or you don't. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Ketch. Any questions for Councilman Ketch on the bill? None? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, so next we'll move on to Bill 9225. This is actually from me. It's called University Housing District Rental Housing License Density Limits. So this bill is basically a pilot program that we want to apply around the Towson University, within a mile of Towson University. And what we've seen here, and I know this tends to be unique to Towson and possibly the UMBC area, but it's been very prevalent in Towson. We have a few different neighborhoods now that are about over 50% rentals. And one of the problems, or one of the unique challenges with student rentals in particular, is most of our income in this county derives either from property tax. Half of it comes primarily from property tax. The other half comes from income tax. And what we see with student rentals, not that students are bad necessarily, but when we replace a homeowner who is a working person or a starter home that gets sold to an investor for a rental, we often lose all the income tax component of that, and because students tend not to be working and don't pay income tax. So it's become a real problem in Towson. The other issue that we see is our services go up because of large amounts of rentals. This summer, or at the end of this summer, I spent weeks on rat issues that derived out of trash that's not being disposed of properly, lawns that aren't being maintained, grass that's not being cut, things like that. And what we're proposing here is to have, like I said, it would be a pilot program where we could look at, take a real deep dive into these neighborhoods. We're actually already inventorying the different properties and determining how many rentals are on each block. And it would be enforced through rental registration licenses. It also has some components to it where if you own a house and you need to temporarily rent it because you took a job out of town or you decided to live in Europe for a year or something, you'd have the ability to rent your property even if that neighborhood was over the rental limit. Anyway, I feel like this is a move where we're going to, basically figure out how we're going to start dealing with this problem that has been a growing problem in Towson for the last 20 years. And I know we have several speakers that are going to talk about this bill. So with that, I'd like to get to the speakers. Do any of my colleagues have questions for me at this point? Okay. Ms. Belcastro, did you want to go to the speakers?
Our first speaker is Kevin Young, who is here in person.
Mr. Young, how are you?
I'm speaking on behalf of Towson Green Homeowners Association. We are opposed to, we want to be excluded out of this, the restrictions. We are a jewel in Towson, in the middle of Towson. We have a homeowners association, which is very different from a community association. We have mandatory fees that we have to pay, and they're a lot more than a community association's voluntary annual fees. What these fees cover is landscaping, snow removal. Just 2 years ago, we put in $70,000 worth of alleys and sidewalks. We also have a contract with Moorings Elite Termite and Pest Management Service, who actively takes care of our rodent problem. As far as the individual homeowners, they are regulated by our bylaws, and we hold them accountable. So we have a yearly inspection, and if they're not up to par, they're subject to fines. Some of these fines are per instance, or some of them are continuous. So if somebody leaves their trash can out overnight, they're subject to a fine. So we're very different from the community associations. I applaud whatever the community associations want to do, but we're different from them. So we want to be a neighbor to them. Anything that we can do to help, that's fine. Any questions?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Young. We appreciate you being here. I know you, and I appreciate our talk and, understanding how the property management company works that works with your neighborhood, which is unique. Yes, especially in Towson. Most of our neighborhoods are older. There were no, there's often a confusion about a homeowner's, and I think on TV even, a homeowners association often is a voluntary association. They don't really have the ability to do certain things, especially fine their neighbors, and that's unique with Towson Green.
Yes, sir.
But I appreciate you being in, and Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Mr. Young and Mr. Chair. Where is Towson Green? What streets makes up the-
Meridian, Susquehanna, it's in between Susquehanna and Burke.
Okay, gotcha. Between Susquehanna and Burke, on the
Correct.
east or west
And
side of
it will
York
say
Road?
the east side of York Road.
East side of York Road. Okay, thank you very much.
And Towson Green was actually, was built in
2012.
2012.
Oh, I know where
It
that
was
is.
a Bizzuto it was
Yeah.
a Bizzuto Homes project. The neighbors really worked, the surrounding neighborhoods worked in concert with the builder to build a really beautiful community.
Thank you, sir.
And it came with some more rails that our older communities don't have. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Okay, Ms. Belcastro, next speaker.
Our next speaker is Pete Gutwald.
Mr. Gutwald. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council. As you know, I'm here as a technical expertise in regulating, so I have a lot of most of my testimony will be addressing some clarity and some technical issues associated with the practical implementation of the legislation. So hopefully we can work through a lot of the stuff. The legislation introduces a number of different terminology that I don't, not necessarily understand or know that it's actually defined, such as temporary or supportive housing. That's not really defined anywhere. The only place I know where temporary housing is referred to is accessory dwelling units, and that actually doesn't require a rental license. So I have a lot of questions on, what are we including under that definition of temporary or supportive? I don't know what rehabilitation facilities are defined as. Are these state regulated individuals? Are they recovery homes, halfway houses? Is that what we're referring to? Again, they don't require rental licenses, so I'm not sure what we're talking about rehabilitation facilities. And then I'm not sure where certain things like assisted living facilities, purposely built student housing, is that also considered temporary or supportive services? I wasn't sure where that would fall.
I think they were exceptions.
Senior housing, yes, those are things that aren't included, but I'm not sure where they fall, whether they are included as a rental. Are they included as things that shouldn't be as a use, or are they something that should be a rental license?
Mr. Phillips, did you want to?
So I'm not saying that you have to necessarily answer the questions, and I just want to bring this, I can share all my notes with Mr. Boswick and Mr. Phillips at a later date, but I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that there are some technical issues that I think need to be worked out, so I understand as an implementer, or as the regulator, what I'm supposed to do, because I know the bill talks about drafting regulations, but some of these things that I'm talking about would not be something that you could do from a regulatory measure standpoint. You would have to put that actually in the bill. So I'm just listing out some things that I have concerns about. And then I'm not sure how the licenses are of which ones that are exempted. So you realize you have rental licenses that are exempt. So if you are a family member that you're renting out, you have a license, but it is considered exempt. Is that counted towards that 30% or not counted towards that 30%? Those are some of the things that I have concerns about. And the ones that do require licenses that you are sort of exempting, including boarding homes, short-term rentals, and those kinds of things, are they counted towards that 30%, or are they not counted towards that 30%? So we also introduced a terminology that's called the definition of a new license. My question with the new license is, does that include renewals? If you currently have a license and it comes and the area that's defined as a block or a neighborhood, and it's over that 30%, is that renewal? They cannot have a renewal. Is that the condition? The renewal will not take into, and they have to reduce that. You cannot issue that new renewal since they have a license already. Which brings me back to the next question. With that, you realize renewal current licenses are 3 years. You allow for a condition to have somebody have a 1-year license. Is that 1-year license renewable every time they come up, each and every time? Because the 3-year renewals every 3 years, they have to get renewed for a new rental license. So I'm confused about how that 1 year and the 3 year, and that creates a logistical issue, and not your problem, but we have to create the ability for the system to identify where there are 1 year renewals and where there are 3 year renewals. So again, I'm bringing up some of the concerns. When I read the section that talks about the conditions for that 1 year, I read those as they must meet, and I heard your testimony, Councilman Ertel. I read that they have to meet every one of those conditions. That is not an or, it is an and each and every one. So they have to be previously owned, which I'm not sure what previously owned. Is it in the last year? Is it the last 3 years? Is it the last 10 years? That's another, issue that I'm concerned about when you say previously owned. And then it has to be on sale it has to be up for sale, and they have to define a practical hardship regarding the property. Again, another logistical implementation concern I have about all of that is if all of those conditions have to be met, then what is the final thing regarding a financial hardship regarding the property? Is that a foreclosure? Is that it says regarding the property, and does that mean it has to be in foreclosure for that financial hardship to be a qualifier for that condition of that 1 year license? Last but not least, some of the code enforcement issues that I will highlight that create sort of concerns as a regulator. When you talk about the ability as things come off and things go on to become for the evaluation of the license for a license in one of these areas, it talks about the overall number of code enforcement complaints. It could reasonably likely to reduce the overall number of code enforcement complaints. Is there criteria? Do you have conditions? I don't know what that means, reasonably likely to reduce the number of code enforcement complaints. The other issue I will highlight is that it talks about if you have other rentals, if you are an individual that has other rentals in that neighborhood or block, is it the neighborhood or block, or is it in the entire housing, university housing district? And secondly, the enforcement issue will be when they put the name in different LLCs. I won't know whether they have multiple rentals because it'll be under different names, and that will require additional practical implementation and how that would. And then last but not least, I will just highlight, and I think this was identified earlier, non-residential properties require a rental license. I don't know what that means. What non-residential properties? You talk about rehabilitation services, and I thought that was associated with the hospitals or something to that effect, but they don't require rental licenses. So are we talking about apartment complexes? Because that could be considered non-residential.
It certainly doesn't apply to apartment complexes.
Okay, so
I think we need to obviously sit down and go through this.
So that's the extent of and I'd be willing to talk to them, and these are things that and when I go through and read regulation, I'm looking at it from my hat of implementing this, and when I get into arguments across somebody, from the application table, I deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. So.
Okay. I thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll, why don't I'll get with you and we'll set up a time and we can sit down with.
All right.
Well, and Mr.
Adam,
Chairman, I just wanted to say, I certainly appreciate Mr. Gutwald's input. I'm a little, doesn't matter, but I would rather, I'd like to have this conversation, like we have in previous bills where PAI is affected and they're going to be implementing, and you and I and Brad Croner sit down and we kind of go over things. It's a little easier to parse through it that way than to try to parse through it while you're rapid fire telling us, but we'll get through it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a few of the things you mentioned are exceptions to the bill, like the the different, we had several properties that aren't part of this that wouldn't be enforced on.
Okay, I wasn't sure of, what that
Like I
meant.
said, I think we need to sit down and.
Okay.
Through it. Yes, Councilman Young.
Chairman, what was the engagement with PAI during the drafting of the bill?
I got it like a week or two ago, and I just really got a chance to look at it this week. So, I mean, this is really my quick and dirty down look at it really quick this week. So.
And the executives folks, in terms of drafting and then circulating the language?
I don't recall seeing the legislation. I remember we were at the walk and you talked about it conceptually. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking to Adam Whitlock about this for a while.
He's on vacation, so.
And yeah, and, you know, we can certainly sit down and go through it.
Okay,
Appreciate
appreciate it. Yep.
It certainly didn't come out of nowhere. Yeah, yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gutwall. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker.
Our next speaker is Ed Kilcullen, who is here in person.
Mr. Kilcullen, how are you, sir? Hey, Ed, can you,
Thank
that
you.
way they can hear you online?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Ortell and members of the council. My name is Ed Kilcullen, and I'm testifying in support of Bill 9225. I grew up in Towson Manor Village, one of the impacted neighborhoods, and returned there 25 years ago to a vastly different neighborhood with rentals comprising over 30% of the homes in the neighborhood. Countywide, approximately 15% of single-family homes are rentals. The communities surrounding Towson University, however, have far higher rental density, with Towson Manor Village at more than 30% and Berkeley Square at more than 50% rentals. While rentals are a necessary aspect of any community, studies have shown that there is a tipping point at which excessive rentals can have a negative impact on neighborhoods, including insufficient parking, poor upkeep, increased code violations, and decreased property values. Increasingly, investors are purchasing owner-occupied homes in Towson neighborhoods and converting them to student rentals, often outbidding buyers seeking homes for their families. Student rentals are frequently over-rented because investors can command exorbitant rents when renting to multiple students, rents that are out of reach for families in need of affordable housing. The student rentals often exacerbate the problems associated with excessive rentals and further diminish the quality of life for permanent residents, with noise, litter, public urination, vandalism, and increased neighborhood instability. In Towson Manor Village, investors took over more than 40 owner-occupied houses on 3 streets and converted them to student rentals in a domino effect, with owners of neighboring houses often selling to investors when they were unable to sell to families who did not want to live next to a frat house or other student rentals. The result was a student ghetto with houses that were poorly maintained and a constant source of disturbance to the community, with frequent calls to police and code enforcement violations. These 40 houses were later demolished for the Towson Green development, a community intended to reverse the destruction caused by excessive rentals and to promote home ownership in the neighborhood. So it is a sad irony that some residents of Towson Green oppose this bill for their own personal gain over the community's best interests. Investors continue to purchase homes and convert them to rentals, reducing affordable housing and home ownership. Several own multiple rental properties. During a recent 12-month period, 20% of homes in 3 neighborhoods surrounding Towson University sold to investors. That's 1 out of 5 home sales went to an investor. We are losing our neighborhoods, and this bill is critical to safeguarding our neighborhoods from the continued takeover by investors. I urge you to support Bill 9225. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kilcullen. Can you just tell my colleagues, like, one of the things that we see as far as kind of, I don't know about the new class of investors, but what we've seen lately where we seem to be seeing more investors paying more than a first-time home buyer would pay, or outbidding them, and kind of why that often is happening.
Yeah, I mean, we've had situations. We had a former president of a neighborhood association, a young man, married, had a couple of kids, lived in one of the row homes, vice principal at an area high school, tried multiple times to purchase houses in the neighborhood, was outbid by investors. One house in particular, he was outbid by an investor offering a cash sale. You know, he couldn't compete with that, so he moved out of the neighborhood. There are countless examples of that where people are trying to buy houses and they're outbid by investors. Again, there are multiple, in Berkeley Square, the neighboring community, one investor owns 10 or 11 houses. They just buy up in a domino effect. They just buy up houses and take over blocks and then eventually take over the neighborhood.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Any other questions for? All right, Ms. Belcastro, next speaker.
Our final speaker on this item is Elizabeth Eck, who is here in person.
Ms. Eck, how are you? Good to see you.
So I'm grateful that Ed Cullen was here, preceded me, because he's got all the facts and the numbers. I'm going to tell you about what it's like living in a neighborhood that is 50% rentals. My name is Elizabeth Eck. I'm testifying in support of Bill 9225. I am a member of Berkeley Square Community Association. I have lived in the neighborhood for 20 plus years. I live in a charming 83-year-old house that is conveniently walkable to Towson. When I first moved there, it was a vibrant community with families, singles, seniors, and we have a small park in our neighborhood that became the hub of community life, really. We would have July 4th barbecue, wine in the woods, overnight camp out for the kids, Easter egg hunts, volleyball tournaments. We have a community garden, et cetera, et cetera. But as families outgrew their homes, seniors passed or moved on to assisted living, houses were sold, and the majority picked off by investors to rent to TU students because Berkeley Square is basically across the street from the university. They rent to 4 to 5 students, and we have people charging up to $3,800 a house, which violates the county code for rentals. But that's another story. Gradually, the vibrance ebbed, and our community is now more than 50% rentals, as I said. One investor, as Ed just referred to, owns 11 houses and rents illegally to 4 students per. I've seen him tour the parents to explain what the rules of the house are. So 4 students per house, 11 houses, do the math. Talk about housing density. Now we have too many cars in a neighborhood that was built in 1943, never meant to support this number of people and these cars. If I come home from work after 6 and I have to go and park blocks away from my neighborhood to get home, which is not always the safest, but we have more people, more trash. And as the chairman just mentioned, we are rampant with rats. I myself had to hire an exterminator last summer, even though I follow all the rules with the lids, et cetera. And we even had one resident who contracted leptospirosis, which you get from ingesting rat urine. He almost died. We have raucous parties, particularly on Thursday night. I've had my house egged, my porch vomited on. I've listened to music blasted so loud it shook my walls. And while this bill will not turn back the time to less than the 50% ratio, it will help to stem the turnover tide from owner-occupied homes to student rentals. I urge you to please support Bill 9225. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eck. Ms. Eck, can you enlighten everyone here a little bit about how the investors tend to operate in these neighborhoods now? So we know that you can have no more than 2 unrelated in a house.
Correct.
And as you said, we often see rents that are approaching $4,000 per month for supposedly two students.
Unrelated student, or, yeah, renters. Well, what happens is now, in order to park in our neighborhood, you must have a parking pass or a temporary pass. And what they do is they'll tell 2 of their renters, okay, you 2 can get the passes and we'll just put you on the lease, but the other ones they'll pay under the table. So that's one way they get around it legally. But, and I've seen and talked to many people about this. They say, well, we can't get the stickers. Well, they're not supposed to get the stickers or the passes because it's only 2 stickers per house, and they have to prove with a document that they live there signed by their landlord. So, and the other way they get around that with the parking is they have paved over their backyards so that they can park 4 cars on that parking pad. And if you come into the neighborhood, our neighborhood is choked with cars. And you'd think it was absurd, the way they fit in like 2 pickups and, 2 other cars on one little parking pad. So they don't have to have the passes, and they don't have to prove to permits that they live there in order to get a permit. So they just do it all.
Well, and at the same time, we've added all kinds of pervious surface.
Correct.
That used to absorb rainwater that's now running off.
Correct.
And, it just continues where at some point, there's nothing, it's taking away all the quaintness of these neighborhoods.
Paved paradise to put up the parking lot. They did.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Ms. Eck. Appreciate your testimony. And I think, I agree with you, Mr. Chair, that once we start to create more impervious surface, we're really damaging, as you said, the character of the neighborhood and also the natural flow of water, and becomes very dangerous when you start to modify the natural flow and velocity of water. And I believe this council, maybe Mr. Secretary, we tried to address this. And I know where there was some issues related to your district, Councilman Crandall, on limiting the ability to pave portions of the yard that historically have been pervious surfaces. Didn't we take action on that, Mr. Secretary?
I believe so, Mr. Patoka. In fact, I think Mr. Marks sponsored legislation a few years ago to deal with that issue. Mostly front yards, though, I think.
Front yards, not backyard. But I wondered, we don't have any regulation on taking historically pervious surfaces and making them impervious in neighborhoods?
I think in certain areas there are, you can only have a certain percentage of paved areas. We'd have to look into what it is for this particular area.
Yeah. I think it's a real concern that we need to address. Councilman.
Yeah, they've knocked down what were the garages behind these houses. They've paved over the yards, but then if there's a garage left standing and one owner doesn't want to knock his down, but this one does, he just cuts it in half, pulls down the walls and paves over it. It's absurd looking.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Councilman Toka, that was what you were talking about was in the 5th District when Councilman Marks represented, when Towson was in the area. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that was in response to the, I wouldn't be surprised if Councilwoman Bevins at the time wasn't involved as well. I think it was in response to some flooding issues across the street, across Goucher from Calvert Hall College. There was a big problem over there with that stream flooding that neighborhood. So that's my recollection of it, many years ago.
Well, I'd be interested in revisiting this. Different council now, and any of my colleagues that are interested, perhaps, Mr. Secretary, I can work with you on looking at how we might be able to address some of the way we're changing the natural flow of water. And it really does, once you try to change this natural flow of water, there's real flooding concerns. And other environmental.
And Councilman, just we're seeing in the 7th District where homeowners, property owners are basically, they are getting rid of complete yards. They're just, the whole backyard is now concrete.
I see it.
We're seeing it. We're seeing a lot more of that.
I live in a historic district, and I see it in my neighborhood, and in some of the houses that are on streets that have more volume of traffic, where they're paving a lot of the lots, and I wish we could control that. Part of it is you have sometimes people that are working, and so they have trucks. In this case, you have students. But I do think it's something we need to revisit. I'm happy to take the lead on that.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Heck.
Thank you.
Always good.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Ms. Heck, he may have,
Second.
is it for me or,
Yeah.
or
Oh,
Mrs.?
it's for her. You had said something that confused me. You were referring to parking, about the parking stickers, and you said that 2 people name were submitted to the county for the decals or stickers. And then you said, then the other people pay money. And I mean, what do they pay money for?
I'm sorry, that wasn't very clear. Legally, if there are 2 unrelated people renting a home,
right,
those people can apply for a permanent parking sticker in that neighborhood by getting their landlord to sign a paper. They bring it to permits, and those permits are issued, those permanent stickers that you put on the back of your car. And though you have to pay for those. But what happens is if there are 4 people and you've only got 2 stickers, what do the other 2 people do? Well, the landlord will tell them, we're just putting these 2 people's names on this application, and the other 2 people can park in the parking pad in the back. Or the other ones they can use temporary passes that have been obtained by the 2 sticker holders, and they park on the street with the temporary parking passes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you had explained it by saying the other ones would pay money under the table or something, and you've explained then how this works.
That's for the rent.
Yeah, that's more the rent,
Yeah.
Councilman Catch, where.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where what happened, what we often see with the I'll call them the landlords. The landlord they can only put 2 people on the lease.
Right.
So the rent is $3,800, let's say, and you and Councilman Jones can pay $3,800 if you wish.
Right.
Or you can get Councilman Crandall and Councilman Patoka to rent out or use the bedrooms in the basement and pay you some kind of money to offset your costs. So your rent goes from $1,900 down to $1,000.
I don't think a councilmanic frat house is a great idea.
Well, would we have to provide like heat and air conditioning for them?
You
In the basement?
You would, but that, that's
Really?
another concern that we see. Often these houses are, because they are smaller houses, often with one bathroom. We see conditions sometimes where there's a lot of exploitation going on where it's tough, if you're one of the people that aren't on the lease and you have a complaint because a toilet's leaking into your bedroom down in the basement, it often is tough to complain because you're not on the lease and you don't really have any rights. The only,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Councilman Katz.
I'm a little confused because I do remember we've had more than one proposal legislation that has passed dealing with this issue. I know about the the restrictions as to who can rent, but do we enforce that law? I mean, do we enforce the fact that only two can be unrelated of the people renting the property? I mean, do we enforce that, or
So
is it the fact that there's no legal document that shows that indeed that more than two unrelated people are renting the property? Is that how they get by the law, or what?
I think Councilman Crandall was
So Councilman Katz, I think that we have attempted to address this issue. It's been an issue in the 7th District since, even before I took office, and we've been dealing with it. The problems are, even if there's proper rental registration and there are two unrelated people on the lease, and we ask code enforcement, because we get a complaint, and we ask code enforcement to visit the house and see who else is living there, all someone needs to say is, I don't live here, I'm just visiting. And the only way to prove that someone is actually living at that particular residence, even though they are not on the lease or reported to the county in any way, is to surveil that property. And the police aren't going to do that. Code enforcement isn't going to do that and sit on one house for 5 days to see if they can find out, who's actually living there.
It falls on the neighbors.
Yeah, and that's, we've been told that in the past as well, although not so much recently, that the neighbors need to document with video evidence. So that puts a citizen in a very difficult situation to be snooping and recording their neighbors, and that's just not a great recipe for public safety, in my opinion. So the laws are on the books, but my feeling and in my experience, they've been largely unenforceable.
And I would add that we only have, I don't know the exact number these days, but I think we're still at around 25 actual code enforcement officers who actually go out and write violations up in the entire county. So we have 850,000 people. I don't know how many dwellings. It's a ridiculous amount of dwellings that are in this county. And to have 25 people, and I know as recently as 10 years ago, that number was 40. So we're down code enforcement officers. The violations are off the charts, especially in our inner Beltway neighborhoods. But in Towson in particular, these student rentals have been particularly problematic because there's a lot of financial incentive for the students to, I don't know about break the law, but they have proximity. It's easy to do different flexible arrangements to live there, and we're just, it consumes a large amount of my time as a council person to deal with this stuff. And it's disheartening because what we're seeing is neighborhoods continually degrading. And at some point, it will cost us as a county, because my very first thought on this was, as we lose income tax, we will eventually become Baltimore City, in that, Baltimore City's property tax is double what the counties are. So if we continue to erode our income tax base, at some point, we have to make it up somewhere.
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, and I know that I have constituents who have surveilled their neighbors, and in several cases, well, more than several cases, I've recommended, but I do hesitate, because if you have your neighbor spying on you, in essence, I mean, it can really set up a bad situation, and could be a very dangerous situation as well. So, but just one more question, and I guess this is for you and Councilman Marks. I know Councilman Marks had put in a number of bills putting responsibility on the owner of the property should there be parties that are disruptive and that kind of thing. My question is, are things better in Towson with these communities where the students are renting? Are things better, or is it no different?
I would say the social host ordinance has been a successful bill.
Good.
And that's now countywide. So that started as a pilot in Towson.
Right.
So that's been helpful. But what I've seen, and I'm a newer council person, but I was a community person for a long time dealing with this. And it seems like since COVID, we've had a backslide. After the aftermath of COVID, we're seeing more and more problems with a lot of these houses. That's, like I said, that was one of the impetus to roll this bill out, to try to find some ways to slow this down.
And it is legal for a government to limit the number of rental properties in a community?
So one of the things that we looked at before introducing this legislation, there are several municipalities around the country that have looked at this or have current regulations like this.
And they stood up in court?
As far as we can tell, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you're doing. I certainly have sympathy for the problem.
All right.
There's money to be made.
Thank you.
We'll figure out a way to do it.
Thank you, Councilman Catch. Councilman Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, we've had conversations about this for a while, 3 years on the council. You and I have also talked about similar concerns and issues related to Towson University, and also some similar things in UMBC, but not at the same extent. So I'm a supporter of what you're trying to do and trying to address specific issues related to the rental issues and what residents are feeling in their county. There's no need to the Baltimore City's issues related to the tax, the size of their tax burden isn't tied to rentals. There's been a 50 to 60 year flight from the city that Baltimore County's benefited from folks coming out here, and from a number of vacancies that have been from derelict landlords and folks that have not kept up with their properties, that has required the city to tax the residents that are left. Unfortunately, the folks that had the means to leave did leave, so the folks that are left to tax can't produce enough funds to then handle the burden of what city requires, because the people that are left require a lot of government services. So I don't want to just say that focusing on student housing, and I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but this bill isn't trying to prevent this county from falling into a situation where we need to raise property taxes just because of student housing around Towson and UMBC.
No, and if I made that accusation, it was wrong. It's just that what we see, like I said, what's acute about Towson is with the students is many times rental properties, they still produce some kind of income tax. But with students, we pretty much always see zero. And now when we have neighborhoods where they have 50, 60, 100 houses that are student rentals, that's multiply that times whatever the normal, the average income tax we get out of that. And suddenly there's some big numbers of money that we're not getting anymore.
Right. Issue worth.
At the same time, and this is what really worries me, is both some of the neighborhoods where this is occurring used to be our starter housing. Berkeley Square, a lot of people started in Berkeley Square as a young couple. They'd make more money, and then they'd move to one of our other neighborhoods. They'd fall in love with Towson, and they'd move to Stoneleigh or Wiltondale or some other neighborhood. What's happening now is those couples often are bypassing these neighborhoods. So we don't have the affordable starter housing in Towson. And at that price point, they're moving to Harford County or Carroll County and not falling in love with Baltimore County. So they're not coming back here when they make more money. They're just buying a big house in Bel Air or Westminster.
All issues that we have discussed, and also I know you've tried to address in your tenure here on the council, and happy to assist with. No need to be, I'm just saying that there's, what we're discussing around Towson University, around even the other universities, and CCBC for that matter, around the 3 different locations around the county where they have a large footprint, do not tie to this systemic issue of having to raise property taxes in Baltimore City because of school zones and investors coming in and buying houses. If anything, they need more people investing down in Baltimore City than turn areas around that have had entire blocks that used to be starter homes and places where workforce folks lived, but now nobody can live because nobody wants to. I don't think we're in danger of going that way anytime soon. And I know with folks like you and folks like Todd Crandall and Councilman Marks, isn't going to happen. I just think that I'm more than happy to address the issue and talk to local residents on how we can make this work and make sure that we're addressing it appropriately. But I don't think that there's any need to be throwing back to or making people fear that by doing nothing, we're somehow going to be Baltimore City with 9-10% property tax. I just don't think that the connection is clearly made there. All of your concerns are absolutely right. And the lived experience from folks that used to move to a particular neighborhood around Towson, even in Catonsville as a starter home, is absolutely valid. Looking at Baltimore City and saying if we don't do something now, we're going to have 10% property tax is ridiculous.
Okay, well, I had a lived experience in Baltimore City and watched the city go down. And
Because investors came in and purchased a home because of a university that had students that needed to live there?
No, but
Okay, good. Then I just wanted to make sure that there's a difference
often-
between the situations.
Often it had to do with investor properties. They drove out the,
Not disconnecting that, and we're already trying to address the issue.
all right. Thank you, Councilman Young. Any others? All right. And we have, I think, is that all? We have one last bill. This is 9325. This is also mine. Development impact fees and surcharges. This was an exception for a affordable housing project that we're doing over in Rosedale, where we're building a senior building, and then there's townhomes that surround the senior affordable, and they had, unbeknownst to us, they had impact fees on them, which the county would actually have to pay. So we're looking to potentially exempt this project from the impact fees, so the county's not paying money back to itself for nothing. It basically would be a wash anyway. So unless there's questions about that, I think we can adjourn.
This is the first.
This is, yes. Or is it?
It's the first consideration.
For 93?
For Bill 90, the one you just talked about, 93.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to mention, Mr. Chairman, is the project you reference is an example of what the bill deals with, but the bill is not specific to just that project.
Right, so it could affect other projects in the future.
Yeah, as long as it's an affordable housing that receives county financial support.
Right. And this one was somewhat unique in that we're building townhomes where often we're building apartment buildings or multifamily. So it's a unique, it's not a unique situation, but it's not as prevalent as what we normally see. All right, thank you. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Be safe going home. Stay warm.
For sure.